First, just very quickly, Iran's proxies have been the cause of so much human suffering, not just in Israel, but around the world. Of course, Hamas was responsible for the attack on Israel. We see Hezbollah shooting rockets into Israel, but other parts of the world. Question is, are billions of dollars or any funding going to go back to Iran so that they can resume to fund their proxies as a result of the deal that you are talking about?
Well, first of all, the deal that we are talking about, or the deal that you've seen reported in the media, is a dynamic situation, because the first thing, sort of what needs to happen at the front end is they want us to lift our blockade so they can get their ships to market. That isn't going to happen unless they open the straits. So that's the first thing. The second thing that has to happen related to the first is they have to agree to enter into negotiations that are on very specific topics, which they have not been willing to do in the past. Number one, they have to agree to negotiate on the issue of no enrichment. Number two is they have to be willing to agree to dispose of
I don't mean to...
I know, but it's going to get to your point, I
Okay,
promise.
please, okay.
The second thing is that they have to agree on the issue of the highly enriched uranium. Now, what you're asking about is, what about sanctions relief or frozen funds and assets? So let's begin by saying that this regime, as you have rightfully pointed out, even despite sanctions, even despite all the pressure, have found a way to funnel money and resources to these proxy groups. What's being discussed is, what do they get in exchange? What nuclear sanctions that have been on them do they get in exchange for compliance, for the reason, if they comply with the reasons why those sanctions were put in the first place? All of that will be condition-based, meaning no, there's not going to be some sort of advanced signing bonus or good faith front.
I mean, really, my question is the administration contemplating returning money to Iran so that they can continue to fund these proxies, all that are hurting millions of people?
Yeah, well, if the money is going to fund the proxies, then it won't be returned to them, obviously. I think the question you're really asking is, what concessions are you willing to make in a negotiation? There are specific sanctions. Some of them are congressional, some of them are UN, and some of them are from the executive branch. But there are specific sanctions that are in place related directly to their nuclear program.
All right, well, let me just...
That's why they were put in place in the first place.
We're taking back my time. I would just say this. I would urge this administration not to give money to Iran to continue the work of their proxies. But let me move right on, because I want to talk to you about what's actually happening at the State Department. USAID was dismantled. They did so much of the development work, humanitarian work around this world. You told us that the regional bureaus and embassies were going to do the work. We have sent directives from Congress to the State Department, and for example, millions for education, for agricultural capacity, for water and sanitation. How would our directives getting to these regional bureaus and to the diplomats? And when you have 100 plus missing diplomats, who's getting our directives, and what are they doing with them?
Well, first of all, I think 100-something missing, what you're saying is the unfilled ambassadorial posts. But every mission of the United States is staffed. If they don't have a Senate-confirmed ambassador, and we would prefer to have Senate-confirmed ambassadors. Now, as you know, there's a process for doing that. Some of it's, I think we've only gotten like 100-something nominees in State Department through the Senate. And some that I think we need to pick up the pace in terms of appointing people to some of these posts. And believe me, I want that to happen. But I don't nominate them, so we have to work with the White House to get those names out there. Now, on your fundamental question is, what is the role the Embassies and Regionals Bureau play? And I think the answer to that question can be found, again, I want to harken back to these global health MOUs with 32 countries, which is a conglomerate of different aid programs that are involved in helping with health, and it could include water projects. These are often negotiated directly out of the embassy with personnel that are on the ground that are laying the groundwork to do it. The other things the embassies do is they help us identify the areas that would have the highest impact at the best efficient cost in these individual countries.
Just sorry to interrupt you, but what I'm worried about, what a lot of us are worried about, is the lack of expertise. The expertise, so your people in the various countries even know what to do. What has happened to that? So there were thousands of people fired. I mean, how do we know that in each of these countries you have someone there
Yeah,
who
so-
knows how to fix a water system? Or
Well, first of all, I think that we would ideally do in every one of these cases that we would be partnering with the local government, with the domestic government, with our host nation, to ensure that we're relying on building their capacity to do this work. And our job, it depends on the country. And that's the unique part of the way we approach this. You could do a bucket and you can say, this is money for X. And it has to work exactly the same all over the world. Or you could do it the way we're doing, which is understanding that a health MOU with one country maybe look very different than what a health MOU looks like in another country. And then we would have to hire or add, depending on the contract, whether it's an international partner or others, if necessary, the expertise for implementation. But the key to the front end of it is identifying what those unique opportunities are, because I can tell you, going through the 32 MOUs, they are all different.
And Mr. Secretary, I can tell you this, that because of whatever the lag time, the lack of expertise right now, there are literally thousands and thousands of people dying. I know there's.
I don't, by the way, I just don't agree with that number. But
I just, Mr. Chair, just one question.
And we'll have another round.
Okay.
We'll have another round.
One more thing. This is very important. All right. We have.
She is a Floridian. I'm going to have to give her
I
that.
understand.
No, we have heard. First of all, this country right now has a immigration policy which is an abomination. We're taking innocent people who have committed no crimes off the street, and we are sending them to countries, some of them that they have no connection to, and we are hearing that the State Department is out there making deals with foreign countries and saying, if you want to get development funds or health care or humanitarian funds, you must take X amount of deportees.
And Mr. Secretary, you're going to have to answer that relatively quickly because we're way
Yeah.
past time.
I don't know where you've heard that from. We have certainly negotiated third country agreements with multiple countries around the world, but none of them are under threat. In some cases, for example, they have said, well, we'll do this for you but we have some costs associated with assuming this responsibility, and we provided them funds to deal with that. But I can't recall of a single instance, I don't know who's reporting this to you, where we're basically threatening a country that we're gonna never deal with them again if they don't help us. But obviously, we are friendly and help it, but this is the way diplomacy should work. Honestly, let's be frank. We are going to reward those that are good to the United States. We're not gonna be as friendly to places that are not furthering our national interests. For a long time, this has been going on. There are countries around the world where we were spending millions and millions of dollars, and they vote with us, against us, 99% of the time at the UN, and all the commercial contracts are with China. But yet we're funding their entire healthcare system. Look, I think that's a legitimate thing to say, hold on a second, does this make sense?
All right, let's move on, and we've given the ranking member, because she is the ranking member, and she's my friend and partner,